news to bring you from Italy. We're being told that the fashion designer Giorgio Armani has died at the age of 91.
Giorgio Armani seemed invincible, a fashion god who sculpted the look of modern power. But the thing nobody tells you is that even gods can have broken hearts. In what can be seen as his final testament, Armani didn't talk about suits or celebrities. He talked about a ghost that haunted the halls of his lavish Milanese palazzo, a ghost of a life he never lived.
This afternoon, while the funeral is taking place, they are closing all across the country the hundreds of Giorgio Armani stores in this country.
His confession reveals the stunningly lonely reality of his success, and the one thing he would trade his entire $10 billion empire for in a heartbeat. The billion-dollar regret. The name itself speaks of power, elegance, and unimaginable success. For half a century, he was more than a designer. He was an architect of ambition. From the sleek power suits that defined Wall Street in the 80s to the jaw-dropping gowns that ruled the red carpet, Armani built an empire worth over $12 billion. He owned everything, controlled everything, and answered to no one. He was King Giorgio, a living legend whose life looked like a perfect, flawless design. But not all things are what they seem. In what many now consider his final, most revealing testament, the famously guarded emperor of fashion pulled back the curtain. And what he revealed wasn't a victory lap, but a heartbreaking confession. You see, many people are crazy about the idea of fame and fortune, but nobody tells you about the crushing weight that comes with it. In a stunningly candid interview with the Financial Times, Armani laid bare his only regret in life. It wasn't a bad business deal. It wasn't a design he wished he'd done differently. His biggest regret, the one thing that haunted this billionaire icon, was spending too many hours working and not enough time with friends and family. Think about that, a man who could buy entire islands, who could dress any star, whose name was a global symbol of having made it, wished for something so simple. He wished for more time. This wasn't just a passing comment, it was the core truth of his life. Armani was a self-confessed workaholic, a micromanager who admitted his greatest weakness was his obsessive need to be in control of everything. Even in his final years, when his health began to falter, he was approving collections from his home, unable to let go. He built this incredible fortress of a brand, a company that spanned from haute couture to hotels, chocolates to home furnishings, but he built it with the bricks of his own life. He sacrificed love, relationships, and the quiet, simple moments that make a life whole, all on the altar of his work. In a 2020 interview, he was even more direct, admitting a deep fear of loneliness. It's an insane irony. The man who dressed the world for every important occasion often found himself utterly alone when the lights went out. The parties, the glamour, the praise, it was all just noise in an empty room. His empire was his masterpiece, but it was also his prison. And as he looked back, he could see the bars were forged from his own relentless ambition. He once said, "Elegance doesn't mean being noticed, it means being remembered." But his final confessions make you wonder what he truly wanted to be remembered for. Was it the billions of dollars and the iconic jackets? Or was it the man who, in the end, just wanted more time with the people he loved? The heartbreak isn't that he was successful. It's that he paid a price for it that no amount of money could ever repay. This hollow victory set the stage for the single greatest tragedy of his life. Death of a partner, birth of a tyrant. To understand the depth of Armani's sacrifice, you have to understand the man who stood beside him when it all began, Sergio Gagliotti. He wasn't just Armani's business partner, he was his life partner, the driving force who gave the shy, uncertain designer the confidence to build a kingdom. You see, in the beginning, Giorgio was the artist, the visionary who could feel the fabric and see the design. But Gagliotti was the architect of the business. He was the one who sold Armani's old Volkswagen Beetle for $10,000 to start the company in 1975. He handled the finances so completely that Armani famously never even had to carry a wallet. Gagliotti was the extrovert, the charmer, the businessman who believed in Armani more than Armani believed in himself. Together, they were an unstoppable force, building their dream from a tiny Milan office into a global phenomenon. They were in the middle of what Armani called their mad dash for glory. The brand was exploding. Hollywood had discovered them. The world was at their feet. And then in 1985, the unthinkable happened. Giorgio Armani passed away at just 40 years old. The industry vultures began to circle immediately. Everyone expected Armani to fail. They thought the quiet, creative genius would be lost without his partner, that the empire would crumble without its co-founder. They couldn't have been more wrong. The thing nobody tells you is how grief can forge a person into something harder, something unbreakable. The loss of Gagliotti was a devastating personal blow, a wound that never truly healed, but it also ignited a fire in Armani. He didn't just step up, he became a different man. Overnight, the artist had to become an entrepreneur. The man who didn't carry a wallet now had to run a multi-million-dollar global corporation. He taught himself the business, learned to manage the finances, and took on the crushing responsibility of their shared dream, now his alone to carry. This was the moment the workaholic was truly born. Work became his refuge, his way of honoring Gagliotti's memory, his shield against the overwhelming grief. He poured every ounce of his being into the company. He started arriving first and leaving last, a habit he kept for the rest of his life. This is when his legendary need for control took root. He trusted no one to protect the legacy he and Giorgio had built. This tragic event explains everything about the man he became, driven, relentless, and ultimately alone. He had lost the one person who truly understood him, the one person who shared the weight of the crown. From that moment on, he would carry it by himself, transforming his heartbreak into a global empire, but an empty one nonetheless. But his lonely rule raised one massive, terrifying question for the future: planning for a world without Armani. What happens to a $12 billion empire when its king has no heir? This wasn't just a question for the fashion world, it was the defining obsession of Giorgio Armani's later years. The man who controlled everything had to confront the one thing he couldn't control, his own mortality. He never married and had no children. His entire life was his company. So, who would inherit the throne? The thing is, for Armani, this was never about just handing the keys to one person. His brand was his child, and he was terrified of it falling into the wrong hands or being torn apart by corporate giants like LVMH or Kering, which had swallowed up so many other independent fashion houses. He was determined to ensure his legacy would survive exactly as he envisioned it. So he did something almost unprecedented in the cutthroat world of high fashion. In 2016, he created the Giorgio Armani Foundation. This wasn't some vanity project, it was a masterstroke of strategic planning. He drafted meticulous bylaws that would act as a fortress around his company after he was gone. The foundation was designed to safeguard the governance of his empire, to preserve its independence, and to ensure its values would be upheld. It was an incredibly rare move. The rules were strict. Any potential stock market listing must be delayed for at least 5 years after his passing, and cautious, strategic decisions must be prioritized over risky, fast growth. He was essentially building a constitution for his company, a set of unbreakable laws to protect it from the inside out. But a foundation can't run a company day to day. Armani knew he needed people. While he never named a single successor, he spoke of a gradual, organic transition of power to a trusted inner circle. This wasn't a monarchy, it was a republic he was building. This inner circle included his longtime right-hand man, Leo Dell'Orco, the head of menswear for over 45 years. It also included his family, his nieces, Silvana and Roberta Armani, and his nephew, Andrea Camerano, who all held senior roles in the company. He was spreading his power, dividing his responsibilities, ensuring that no single person could betray his vision. It was a complex, delicate web of power designed to maintain stability. He was trying to build a future that didn't depend on one singular genius, a future that could outlive the man himself. But as the plan became clear, a darker question emerged for us all. The man in the mirror. So here we are looking at the life of a man who achieved everything the world tells us to want. He had fame, unimaginable wealth, and a legacy that will last for centuries. He sculpted modern style, dressed icons, and built a global empire from nothing but his own vision and will. But when the curtain was pulled back, the man himself told us it wasn't enough. He told us he was lonely. He told us he regretted the price he paid. This forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. Are we all just chasing the wrong thing? The thing is, we're sold this dream every single day. The dream of the corner office, the billion-dollar valuation, the endless hustle. We see icons like Armani and we see the success, the power, the perfect exterior. We don't see the silent dinners, the missed family moments, the crushing weight of being the one who has to have all the answers, all the time. Armani's life is a cautionary tale written in the finest silk and cashmere. It proves that you can gain the whole world and still feel like you've lost the one thing that truly matters. Is it possible that this entire story, this empire, was built on a foundation of deep personal sadness? Did the loss of his partner, Sergio, send him into a spiral of work so profound that he never really came out of it? Maybe the empire wasn't a monument to his success, but a distraction from his pain. We look at the carefully constructed succession plan, the foundation, the trusted circle of heirs, and we see a man desperately trying to create a family to replace the one he never had time to build. His company was his family. His employees were his children. And in the end, he was leaving his entire life's work to them, hoping they would care for it the way he did. But what if it goes even deeper than that? Here's where the story takes a truly bizarre turn. Some theories suggest the empire wasn't just a distraction. It became a living entity, a machine that demanded constant sacrifice. Think about it. After Sergio passed, Armani poured his entire soul into the brand. What if in his grief he made a kind of unspoken pact? He would give the empire his entire life, his love, his time, his happiness. And in return, it would give him global domination in a form of immortality. The brand became a jealous god, pushing away anyone who tried to get too close to its king, ensuring he remained solely devoted to its growth. And here's an even wilder thought. What if he was telling us about his pain the whole time, right in front of our eyes, and nobody noticed? Consider his designs. Armani is famous for creating a universe of controlled, muted colors, especially his signature Grega, a shade that is neither warm nor cold, a color of beautiful nothingness. His power suits were like armor, creating a sharp, impenetrable shell around the wearer. The lines were always clean, the structures rigid, the emotions stripped away. Was this just fashion, or was it a secret code? Was he projecting his own inner world onto his clothes, a world of emotional control, muted feelings, and protective walls? Maybe his entire creative vision was a diary of his loneliness, a biography written in fabric that the world wore without ever reading the words. This leads to the most chilling theory of all, hidden within his final act, the succession plan. On the surface, it's a brilliant strategy to protect his company. But look closer. He didn't name a single heir. Instead, he created a complex web of power shared between his nieces, his nephew, and his most loyal lieutenants. Is this a plan for stability, or is it a final Machiavellian test from beyond the grave? Perhaps he set up a corporate Game of Thrones, a posthumous challenge to see who among his chosen family is truly loyal to his vision and who is just after the money and power. It could be his last act of control, watching from afar to see who is worthy of carrying his name. When you really step back and look at it, the whole thing feels like a grand, beautiful tragedy. It makes you wonder, if this happens to a man at the very pinnacle of success, what does that mean for the rest of us? Are we missing the key details in our own lives while we're busy building our own little empires? Perhaps Giorgio Armani's final heartbreaking revelation wasn't just a confession. Perhaps it was a warning. Is a legacy worth a lifetime of loneliness? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the legends.